On 5.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. For several months, there have been unconfirmed reports that the Reagan administration was trying to destabilize the government of Nicaragua. These stories told of CIA efforts based in Nicaragua's neighbor to the north, Honduras. Today, Bill Plant at the White House confirmed the reports.
CBS News has learned that a CIA-directed secret commando force is in training in Honduras for operations against Nicaragua. The Reagan administration charges that rebel forces in El Salvador are being directed from Nicaragua. Sources said that the commandos, perhaps already as many as 500, are all Latin Americans, that no U.S. citizens are with them in the field, but that the CIA is footing the bill. The operation is part of a covert action plan authorized late last year by President Reagan and funded initially at $19 million. At the White House today, Mr. Reagan proclaimed an upcoming day of remembrance for Afghanistan and deplored the Soviet invasion of that nation. He would say nothing about U.S. plans in Central America.
Have you covert operations against Nicaragua, sir?
That again is something I cannot comment
Mr. President, the Russians are saying that we're interfering over there, and we're saying that they're interfering in this hemisphere. Now, what's the difference? Is it all just propaganda?
Well, as I've said before, they have a different standard of morality than we do. We tell the truth.
The truth is, no administration official would say today that it wasn't so. All they would say is no comment. In fact, officials have already briefed members of congressional intelligence committees on the U.S. plan, the goal of which is to destabilize the leftist government of Nicaragua. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
Although reports of the CIA effort to destabilize the Sandinista regime in Nicaragua are circulating here, U.S. officials consistently decline comment, as Secretary Haig did before a Senate committee today.
It would be inappropriate for me to comment on covert activities in forums such as this. But I would certainly hope that that policy position, which is long-standing, does not suggest a confirmation of the reports in that newspaper.
Nevertheless, the Secretary emphasized again that Nicaragua is behind the guerrilla war in neighboring El Salvador.
The facts are that the essential command and control is emanating from Managua.
One of Nicaragua's revolutionary leaders, Jaime Huilac, has been in the United States for a week lobbying for his country. Today, Huilac protested the U.S. spy plane overflights, which the Reagan administration announced yesterday, and he denied yesterday's evidence that Nicaragua is building up its military strength with Soviet and Cuban help. Huilac was also asked about reports that Nicaraguan pilots are training in communist countries.
Esa información es falsa.
False. Congressman Michael Barnes, who chairs the Latin American subcommittee of the House, today sounded an alarm over the Reagan administration's buildup of pressure on Nicaragua.
Mr. Speaker, what are we trying to do? It's almost as if the administration wants a war in Central America. Does the administration want to overthrow the Nicaraguan government in violation of our own stated principles of international behavior? If not, why is it whipping up this war hysteria?
Meantime, a number of officials from past administrations were invited to the State Department today for a briefing on the degree of Nicaragua's support for the war in El Salvador.
It was sobering and reason for concern. I found what we were shown to be credible and quite persuasive.
Other invitees agreed with Linowitz that the evidence they heard here is persuasive of Nicaragua's involvement in El Salvador, but that most of it could not be made public. They also said they did not discuss what steps the United States can take against Nicaragua. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News at the State Department.
El Salvador's civil war erupted in the fall of 1979 after a combined military-civilian government took power. Since then, the two sides, the government and the rebels, have been fighting a mostly hit-and-run war, with neither side scoring a major victory. Richard Wagner in El Salvador examines what the war has done and what the outlook may be.
As the stalemate continues, the government here and the Reagan administration continue to reject the rebels' offer to negotiate a settlement. An estimated 5,000 well-equipped leftist guerrillas are at war in El Salvador. U.S. officials say their weapons are funneled to them through Cuba, with the shipments of arms originating in other communist countries. Today, the rebels move unchallenged through about a third of the countryside. The nation's cities, though, are controlled by government forces. They total about 22,000. With last year's dusk to dawn curfew now lifted, the capital city of San Salvador has a superficial getting back to normal appearance. But with terrorism and kidnapping always a moment-to-moment possibility, this is life on the edge. A conflict the rebels are winning is the war against El Salvador's economy. A conservative estimate puts war damage at $70 million. In the last 3 years, this country's gross national product has shrunk by 25%. Unemployment has risen to 30%. El Salvador is to elect a constituent assembly on March 28th. This 60-member body will, in theory, appoint an interim government, draft a constitution, and set a date for a presidential election. But the radical left is boycotting the electoral process and has said it will disrupt the voting. In this violent nation, few candidates campaign in public because of fear of assassination. And there's no guarantee the real power in this country, the army, would relinquish that power no matter what the voters say. Few here believe the election will solve the problems of El Salvador. For all its mounting military, monetary, and personal stake in this country, the Reagan administration has a low public profile here. The United States is on record as drawing the line against communism in El Salvador. But U.S. diplomats have to work under heavy protection in a fortress-like embassy that has been attacked by both the right and the left. Perhaps 50 U.S. military advisors are training Salvadoran army units in the field, but they're rarely seen by press or public. The administration's plan to end the communist threat in El Salvador by military means has not worked. What it will try next is not known. But no longer is there any hope for a quick, decisive conclusion to the struggle here. Richard Wagner, CBS News, San Salvador.
I'll never vacuum my bedroom again. I'll never vacuum my dining room again.
From now on, I'll electric broom with a 3-speed Regina electric broom. It's easier to electric broom.
Lighter and faster. And my floors look beautiful.
From now on, I'll electric broom.
It saves me time for the things I really enjoy.
There are 3 Regina electric brooms and now the 2-motor electric broom power team. Available at participating True Value and other fine stores.
America on the move, on the tire Michelin pioneered, the Radial. We are moving thousands of trucks and trailers. We are delivering produce and flowers and school children. We are taking people to work, to shop, to play. We are pushing, hauling, carrying, scraping. When America demands performance, we deliver. We are Michelin, and we put America on radials.
The Reagan administration, as expected, ordered a total ban today on all imports of Libyan oil to this country. The State Department said the embargo was imposed because Libya is a threat to international order. Since Libyan oil accounts for only 3% of U.S. imports, the ban is not expected to have much domestic impact. But it will be felt in Libya, where sales to the United States have accounted for about 15% of Libyan oil production. Libya's leader, Muammar Gaddafi, traveled to Austria today for what he said were talks about preserving, quote, world peace. Doug Sefton is in Vienna.
Austrian security forces threw a heavy cordon around Vienna airport today for Colonel Gaddafi's first official visit to a Western nation. Austrian Chancellor Kreisky, ignoring the protest against the visit leveled by his political opposition, argued that revoking the invitation could result in economic retaliation. But the airport reception was minimal. While the few dozen Libyan embassy officers and their families made up in enthusiasm what they lacked in numbers, there was no 21-gun salute, brass band, honor guard, or reception line. The two leaders had their first working session this evening in the Baroque rooms of the Chancellery. Diplomatic opinion here sees each man trying to further his own situation. Kreisky demonstrating again that he is the neutralist and a link between Arab hardliners and the West. Gaddafi hurting from the American oil purchase cutbacks and a general slump in oil prices, trying to clean up his image in the West. Doug Sefton, CBS News, Vienna.
The movement for a freeze in the nuclear arms race gained strong support today. It came with the introduction of a congressional resolution urging the Reagan administration to negotiate with the Soviet Union a halt in the stockpiling of nuclear weapons. Bob Schieffer has details.
The announcement of the new congressional support came at American University, where almost 20 years ago, John Kennedy made the speech that eventually led to the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Today, his brother Edward Kennedy was among the 19 senators and 130 congressmen who said they'd support a joint U.S.-Soviet freeze on nuclear weapons production.
It is time to take the first decisive step back from the brink, to put a freeze on the production, deployment, and further testing of nuclear weapons, and to negotiate major reductions in the massive arsenals on both sides.
The idea drew an immediate reaction from Secretary of State Haig, who was on Capitol Hill.
This freeze proposal is not only bad defense and security policy, it's bad arms control policy. While one cannot question the well-meaning motivations of this resolution and its proposal, one must analyze the practical consequences of it, and for that reason I am very concerned about it.
About a year ago, when some longtime disarmament advocates first began talking up the idea of a freeze, few gave the idea any chance at all. But today's surprising show of congressional strength comes just a week after 159 towns in Vermont approved a similar resolution. 3 state legislatures have approved it. It is on the ballot in 4 states this fall, and as Secretary Haig's remarks indicate, while the administration doesn't like it, the idea is being taken seriously. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
The Senate Judiciary Committee today approved a proposed constitutional amendment to ban abortions. The vote was 10-7. This proposal still has a long way to go before overturning the 1973 Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion. It needs 2/3 approval by the full Senate and House and by 3/4 of the states to be ratified. General Motors is recalling 500,000 of its 1982 cars to correct a fuel leakage problem. The vehicles include GM's entire line of A cars and some other Buick, Cadillac, Oldsmobile, and Chevrolet models. The Commerce Department late today said retail sales jumped 1.6% in February. That's the biggest gain since June, before the onset of the recession.
Spanish test tomorrow. Tango said means I am thirsty.
I am thirsty. Wouldn't a tall, frosty glass of orange juice taste good right now? Wonder how you say orange juice in Spanish. I'm gonna get some orange juice right now. Wouldn't it be awful if we were out of orange juice?
Donde está? Ah, there it is.
100% pure orange juice from Florida. It isn't just for breakfast anymore.
70 years ago, Whirlpool started with a product and a promise. A promise to build and sell only good quality, honest appliances designed to give you your money's worth, and a promise to stand behind them. And to make sure we keep our promise, Whirlpool has a toll-free 24-hour telephone service to help you with problems or questions you might have. Over the years, our Whirlpool appliances have become much more sophisticated, but our promise has never changed.
Would Klaus von Bülow suffer all the wrath of hell rather than harm his wife? Or was he ingenious enough to paint a picture of himself as a loving husband while trying to kill her with insulin injections? Those were the opposing closing arguments today in the trial of von Bülow, whose wife has been in a coma since December 1980. Liz Trotta was in the Newport, Rhode Island courtroom.
What we anticipate. Harold Price Farringer, Klaus von Bülow's New York attorney, began by telling the jury the defendant was simply not the kind of man who would try to kill his wife. Yes, said Farringer, von Bülow did have an affair with another woman, and he did take vacations with her while his wife lay in a coma, and he did do something that may not be morally correct, But that doesn't mean he's guilty.
But if you want to convict him on any of those things, there's nothing I can do to stop it, except to say to you that we might as well tear down the courthouses then, abolish juries, do away with the law books, and take them out and hang them from the highest tree, because we will have turned our back on everything that civilization has given us.
The prosecution claims a black bag found in Von Bülow's closet contained needles, a syringe, and drugs, including insulin. It is the state's most damaging evidence, and Farringer went after it.
Can you trust anything about that bag? Mr. Von Bülow was never seen with that bag in his possession.
Then it was the prosecution's turn, and Stephen Famiglietti derided Farringer's attempt to imply the black bag belonged to Martha Von Bülow and that she may have injected herself with insulin.
Then all you have to determine is who owned the black bag. And when you determine who owned the black bag, then you know who was responsible for Martha Von Bülow's coma. There is not one iota or scintilla of evidence which ties in or connects Martha Von Bülow to that black bag or any of its contents.
Remember the motives, Famiglietti told the jury: love for another woman and money.
Klaus Von Bülow was not the first person who has been charged with trying to murder his wife. And he is not the first person who has ever been charged with trying to murder his wife for money and for love of another woman. Don't be naive. It happens. It happens in all segments of society.
The case goes to the jury tomorrow. Liz Trotta, CBS News, Newport, Rhode Island.
Crib death is a sudden, mysterious illness that kills as many as 8,000 infants in this country each year. Researchers now are suggesting two possible links to sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. St. John's University researchers in New York report evidence that SIDS may result from overwhelming allergic shocks caused by common house dust or cow's milk.
Volkswagen is having a black tie celebration. We're celebrating our big idea for the 80s, the new Quantum, our new Scirocco, and two new specially equipped limited edition Volkswagens, the black tie Rabbit and Pickup, with savings of $650 on the Rabbit and Pickup. And for a limited time, there's big factory rebates on other Rabbits and Pickups. So hurry to Volkswagen. There's an awful lot to celebrate.
This is the taste that has won over 200 medals for excellence in wine tasting competitions all over the world. This is Inglenook. This is the taste that is served by more travel holiday award-winning restaurants than any of the other top 5 California wines. This is Inglenook. This is the taste that brought a record price for a California wine in auction, over $1,000 a bottle. Discover award-winning taste. Discover Inglenook.
New Jersey Democrat Harrison Williams, convicted in the abscam sting, waged his fight against expulsion from the Senate through a 5th day of floor debate today. But as Phil Jones reports, the clock appears to be running out.
En route to the Senate floor today, Williams encountered an unusually large crowd of reporters that had gathered after a report circulated that he was ready to resign.
I'm going over there to fight.
Williams may have been ready to continue his fight, but senators were not in the mood to listen. The Senate clock buzzed and buzzed, calling senators to the floor, but it took more than an hour to get enough members to listen to the continuation of his case. Again today, it was Inouye to the defense, the senator from Hawaii arguing that much of the evidence left reasonable doubt. Such evidence as this videotape that showed the phony Arab sheikh making an offer that was turned down by Williams.
I would like to give you some money for permanent residence.
No. This is, when I work in that area, that kind of activity, it is purely a public, not a...
Senator Inouye disclosed today that he had received several calls after Williams had talked on the floor, saying of Williams, he blew it. He was rambling. He should have been a bit more humble. He appeared arrogant. Today, in the gallery, his wife broke into tears as she heard Inouye ask his colleagues, are we to punish him because his presentation was rambling and not in the tradition of Daniel Webster? Are we to punish him because his wife believes in him? Several senators had told Inouye that they thought this recent TV appearance by Mrs. Williams had hurt her husband.
What's happened to him, creating the illusion of crime. It's like raping Alice in Wonderland. Do you know what's going to happen if this is allowed to happen? Every United States senator, every legislator, and before you know it, they're going to get the judges. And then they're going to, it will be Nazi Germany all over again.
Senator Bill Bradley, New Jersey's other senator, announced today that he will vote to expel Williams if he does not resign. However, a senator very close to Williams told CBS News tonight that Williams plans to resign tomorrow. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Alice Rivlin, director of the Congressional Budget Office, today told Congress that cutbacks already enacted or sought by President Reagan will reduce federal aid to college students nearly in half by 1984. She said those cuts were drastic and likely to make it impossible for graduate students to borrow. Meanwhile, Education Secretary Bell denied President Reagan doesn't care about education and said the times call for budget cuts. Bill Moyers, in his commentary tonight, has some thoughts about one small part of the budget battle. Bill?
In great debates, small facts often fall by the wayside like exhausted soldiers in battle. The war goes on without them. So it is this month with the great debate in Washington over that budget. Forget for the moment the running argument over whether welfare has been cut too much or defense increased too much. Think instead of one small, consistently overlooked fact. Federal spending is going to be more this year than last, and even more in the years to come. President Reagan has tried to cut the rate of increase, but the direction of spending is up, and it's going up for a very simple reason. People want it to go up. All kinds of people, especially Congress people, and people like you and me who shake our fist at the politicians with one hand while holding the other hand out, palms up. It's a common posture. For example, take the president's proposal to cut the cost of student loans. He wants to base the loans on financial need. He wants to increase fees and interest paid by the borrowers, and he would limit guaranteed loans to undergraduates. Even if Congress had approved all those changes, the loan program would still have cost some $3.5 billion in fiscal '83. But Congress is not going along, not even the president's own party. Too many constituents out there like those loans, a lot no doubt, who need them. The point of this disputation is not the value of the loans, it's the cost. And the cost is going up because they're politically popular. It's just a small fact, and the budget is full of others like it. But small facts can add up to big deficits, and deficits will be paid for by high interest, inflation, or taxes, perhaps all three. In the battle of the budget, the small fact is the fine print. Left unread, it comes home to haunt you.
If you're worried about stains on your dentures, don't have the cherry pie unless you have the cream, Denture Cream. And don't have the coffee unless you have the cream, Denture Cream. Denture Cream's powerful anti-stain formula helps brush away tough stains, and its refreshing mint flavor leaves dentures clean and fresh. So don't have the berries unless you have the cream. Anti-stain formula, Denture Cream, with refreshing mint.
Now's the time to clean up, America. Get great bargains on almost all Hoover vacuum cleaners during the big National Hoover Week sale. Terrific savings on this all-time favorite Hoover upright. On our best cleaning Celebrity Powerhead canister. On our most advanced cleaner, the Concept One with Power Drive. They're all sale priced. So see your participating Hoover dealer now and get the cleaner you want at a price you can't beat. But don't wait. The National Hoover Week sale is ending soon.
John Kiesler, Miami News columnist and co-host of today's pre-dawn doomsday party in Key Biscayne, said, "The creeps won again." The party brought out some 3,000 people to watch as all the solar system's planets lined up on the same side of the sun. Kiesler, normally a humor columnist, said there were people learning about the planets, kids asking questions. It seemed like fun, and it would have been, but the party ended with 4 stabbings, 30 arrests, and a near riot as police moved in.
It is closed. Thank you.
Kiesler added, Miami's end-of-the-world party ends in violence. The stories will say in Scranton and Grand Rapids and all over that Miami's party ended in violence. He added, it's a valid story, and that's precisely what it should say, for the creeps won again. As I said, it is a rare day when all the planets of our solar system line up in a row. Today they came very close to doing just that, creating what astrologers call the Jupiter effect. Well, what do that cosmic coincidence, the Ku Klux Klan, and the Mediterranean fruit fly have in common? California politics. Jerry Bowen explains.
Sure, I anticipate a tough campaign. I'm running as an underdog.
Jerry Brown wants a new job. The two-time presidential candidate, two-term California governor, finally confirmed today that he wants retiring Senator Hayakawa's seat. The man known as Governor Moonbeam, who once campaigned on exploring the universe,
I see a future where we stretch out to space itself,
is trying to present a more down-to-earth image now, running on bread-and-butter issues, challenging Reaganomics. He has a $1.8 million war chest, bigger than all his challengers combined. But his public image is tarnished, in part because of state budget problems, in part because of his handling, or critics say mishandling, of the medfly invasion.
I would say this, we're getting the flies faster than the flies are getting me.
The Lord of the Flies, yes, I think of him as that.
Novelist Gore Vidal is challenging Brown on a peace platform. Vidal would cut defense spending, legalize prostitution, gambling, and drug use. He announced on Monday and filed on Tuesday after an astrologer friend warned him of today's Jupiter effect. Trust the full moon days, he was told.
For him, announcing on a full moon would not only bring him national attention and maybe even international attention, but I think it's surpasses for what's happening for Jerry Brown 1,000-fold.
Vidal, who is looking for someone to rent his villa in Italy during the campaign, says it's clear what's happening to Brown.
He belongs to his own ambition. He wants to be the president. So you're not going to have a senator. You're going to have an empty seat in Washington.
4 other candidates, including a leader of the state Ku Klux Klan, round out the Democratic field, but the pollsters say Brown may be his own worst enemy. A recent field poll shows Brown's favorable rating is 2-1 against him.
Now the public sees him as an ordinary politician, one who is always seeking higher office, more concerned about his own future than the future of the state, and they're sort of down on him.
And an election today would have Brown losing to several of the candidates in the Republican field, according to the polls. Representative Barry Goldwater Jr., Congressman Pete McCloskey, and San Diego Mayor Pete Wilson would all beat Jerry Brown. None of the other 5 Republican candidates can make such a claim at present, including first daughter Maureen Reagan, who is short of campaign funds and lacking notable family support. First father says he's neutral. First uncle Neil Reagan is supporting someone else. And so in a race where full moons and family names play a role, it's fair to wonder what's a voter to do. If recent history is any guide, the voters may act as unpredictably as the candidates. It's called the California effect. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.
When a car is small and the ride is hard and choppy, it's often called fun to drive. When it's Spartan and homely, it's something like sensible. But when a small car is actually comfortable, even luxurious, efficient, precisely built, well-equipped, and handsome, we call it
a Buick. The new Buick Skyhawk and a $750 cash bonus if you take delivery on one between now and March 31st.
Mr. Collins, I have hemorrhoids.
If you don't use Preparation H, you could be missing medication that helps shrink swelling.
Helps shrink swelling? That's important to me.
It should be. Preparation H has an exclusive formula that helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues and often gives fast, temporary relief from pain and itch flare-ups.
Relieves pain and itch, helps shrink swelling. I'll use Preparation H.
Exclusive formula Preparation H relieves pain and itch, even helps shrink swelling.
This is CBS.
The warden of Brushy Mountain Prison says he'll take a lie detector test to prove who's lying about the murders there last month. We'll have that story for you next on Eyewitness News.
You're looking at the place you ought to be if you love oysters, because at Captain D's, the oysters have arrived. Lots and lots of oysters. So the captain has put together the oyster feast just for you. Tender, juicy oysters lightly better fried, crisp French fries, fresh creamy coleslaw, and 2 Southern-style hush puppies. You get all this great food at an honest value. Captain D's Oyster Feast.